Monsieur Beaucaire was released in 1924. It's directed by Sidney Olcott. It's written by Forrest Halsey, with a cast including Rudolph Valentino, Baby Daniels, Lois Wilson, Doris Kenyon, and various others. And I've been watching Doris Kenyon's films, and this is the first one of Kenyon's films where I haven't really enjoyed it. It's not terrible, but it's not very engaging either. To be fair, it's not my kind of film ordinarily, but to then sit through a silent version of a film that I don't usually care for, and one that's quite long. It's over an hour and a half, which in general, by today's standards, is nothing, but for a silent film that's not very engaging, it's just a bit of a tedious experience. The intertitle cards do explain a good amount. Some of the cards I actually found quite amusing. I'm not sure I was meant to, but it's definitely not a film I'd watch again. The Duke is in love with the princess, but he flees to England from France. Will they be together, or will he live out his new life in hiding? There's a little bit more to it than that, but that's the overarching premise. And honestly, it's not the most interesting story. With the way it plays out, it's very, very slow. There are not that many key plot points. I feel like the second half picked up in pace, but it took a very, very, very long time to get anywhere. And as a narrative, it's just not that great. I could not care less. We do get to know some of the characters quite well, and the performances are fine, but I did think the performances were not as expressive as they needed to be for a silent film. They don't have to be overly dramatic, but facial expressions in particular and certain movements, they need to be a little bit more pronounced so that they convey things that the voice otherwise would do, and I just don't think that some of the performances were quite up to the quality we need for a really engaging silent film. The camera work isn't great either. It's not terrible, but it's not the best. We never really get a sense of a lot of the set designs. There are some exceptions. There are some locations where I thought, yeah, I can imagine myself there. But we have a lot of close-ups of characters, or the rooms are so full of people that we don't really get a sense of the backdrops, and it makes it difficult to feel immersed in the story, immersed in the narrative, when the set designs either aren't that good or we don't really see them very well. And this is not because of the quality of the film over the last century. It's just that because of the camera work or the focus on the characters, we don't get to see a lot of the locations. There are, again, exceptions, but for the most part, it just doesn't work very well. It's not the best film that I've seen, and it's not even a product of its time in that regard, because there are earlier, better silent films that are just so much more enjoyable. The stories are told more effectively. The characters, or I guess the performances, are more expressive. The characters are more interesting. The set designs and locations are easier to see, to visualize, so that we can feel like we're there. Just in general, it's not the best, and I feel like, and this is just speculation, I feel like they maybe focus too much on writing an elaborate story, and it's not told very well in the intertitle cards, and visually it's not that interesting, and I feel like it would be better as a novel. And it is based on the short novel by Booth Tarkington, which I'm not familiar with his work, and I certainly haven't read the book, but if anybody has any thoughts on that, please feel free to share. But I do think, just based purely on the way this film has been executed, I think the story would work better as a novel, which is not a criticism for the book, of course, but as a silent film, it doesn't work very well. Would it work well as a sound film? If it was done right, it could be more engaging, but I don't think I'd want to watch it. Unless there's a specific reason why you want to see this, either from a historical perspective or you're a fan of anybody in the cast, I don't think Monsieur Beaucaire is really one that's worth watching.